Hello, Whitefish. My name's Gracie.
And I'm Morgan.
And we're taking over Hello, Whitefish this week.
While Morgan's out camping at Tally Lake Lodge with his family.
I've heard the pancakes are really good.
Go try them.
Yeah, good luck.
We're going to be calling some people out today.
Yeah, from politicians to American school systems and even ourselves.
We're going to be talking about some pretty heavy stuff, but if you stick around,
we'll end on some hopeful thoughts.
It's just all about being here for everyone in our community so that we can
live, laugh, love.
Oh, no! Dang it. Gracie and I actually met, we were really young when we met. Our moms knew each other when we were in the womb.
Yeah.
But we had danced together. We went to school together for a short time when I still went to Whitefish. And now we're here and both graduated and entering adulthood, which was kind of crazy. Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, it's really nice to sit down with Gracie today. One, because I haven't seen her and connected with her in a long time, but also to talk about some important stuff about growing up in such a place and such a time.
Yeah.
When the world is a little bit in shambles. I guess we can start just with our school system that we both grew up in. So Gracie and I went to, we were both in Whitefish. I was only at Whitefish Middle School until 5th grade, and then I was homeschooled for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 2 years, I got really, honestly depressed. My self-esteem was really low, and I even started to change in dance. Like, I stopped connecting with people there, even though that was supposed to be my place to connect. And that's when I went back to public school.
Mm-hmm.
And my older sister Alex, went to Glacier High, and I wanted to follow in her big footsteps. And I really loved their art program too, so I ended up going to Glacier. And I think everyone's high school experience is tough in some sort of way, right?
Yeah.
It was way different for us.
Yeah.
And our generation and even the generations underneath us who are just getting into elementary school with COVID and just how crazy the world is and what we're having to learn about and what's being taken away from the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. It's always changing and yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Especially with COVID, like learning different ways to cheat on tests and,
and everything
not actually
was online.
Doing your homework.
It was kind of crazy. I thrived in 2020 for the first month or so during everything,
like being online.
That's how I thrive in school. And like Gracie and I had a pretty similar experience in school. She did an article for the Whitefish Review, which is beautiful, and if you have time to read it, you should. And this is not just a Whitefish problem. This is a somewhat all around the world, but mostly an America problem. But our public school system tends to fail a lot of people. Yeah. And in more ways than one, too. But for me, going online during the COVID shutdown, I was rocking it. Yeah. I would get all my stuff done in a couple of hours at home, and then I'd have the rest of my day. And I did better in my own realm than I did in a school setting where I was anxious and I could never focus well in school, and I always felt dumb compared to the other kids around me.
And the school would really put that on you, like it's your fault. Yeah. If you don't do it, we fail you. And don't really give you a whole lot of options to help you.
There's not options, there's a lot of pressure. And then you see all these kids around you who their brains are built for test taking and learning and all this stuff. And we're all wired to learn, right? But we learned that in school. Like, everyone learns in a different way, whether it's visual or hands-on. But there's more to it than that.
For sure.
And I think it's just hard for, you, me, hundreds of other kids, even here.
And it's hard, too, because I feel like here it's really hard for kids to reach out and be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Like, how can I help myself? So it goes undetected a lot of the times with a lot of students. And then they go off to college and then realize it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And it's really crazy. But the awesome thing about the Whitefish school system is they do have the independent high school, which is where I graduated high school. And it was very much like a COVID learning base. Like, It's all online. You have 2 teachers, and then another staff member that just is there to help you, and you kind of do it all on your own. Instead of quarters, they do blocks, which is super awesome. So you like know where you're at each month. And that's something that I think a lot of schools should look into, just because it gives that alternative schooling for kids like you and I that just don't thrive in the quote-unquote regular school system.
Yeah, the cookie cutter.
The cookie cutter.
Yes, the cookie cutter.
It's just not built for the cookie cutter.
Yeah. I need to know more about this.
So the Whitefish Independent High School is an alternative schooling for kids that just don't do super well in the school system. It also helps kids, the school, if a kid wants to drop out, their school will be like, hey, we have this independent high school, why don't you try that first before you drop out? And it basically gives you space, so you get your own little, it's like in this really ginormous room, it's just one big school, and you get your own little desk and your own space, and they give you have your computer, and then you do online schooling for like the classes that you want to take. Like if you were going to do an extra math class, you do that all online. And then we have one English teacher, Mr. Hamill, who is an incredible man, and he gives you one English project a month, and then you finish that English project. So it's just a little more spaced out, and you're still doing everything you would be doing in the regular high school. It's just more project-based. And then there's a program called JMG, Jobs for Montana Graduates, and that program is basically a college and career readiness credit, but it's hands-on instead of just sitting at a desk taking notes and doing slides and stuff. It's you have to do like career exploration projects. You have to do one in like business, or working with a community member, or doing like something with the community. So it just kind of gets you more out into the real world than what a classroom would get you, which is super awesome.
That is awesome.
And the independent high school gives you space to learn about yourself and give yourself time if you need more help. And that's what it did for me. I felt like I was really like suffocating in the regular high school. Like I didn't really have anywhere to go. I was like, I can't do my schoolwork. So when I went to the Indo, they were like, okay, take 2 weeks off of your classes because it's all online. Work on yourself, do whatever you need to do, and then start back on your schoolwork, which is super awesome, because it can help a lot of kids, and it has helped a lot of kids, and it's expanding, which is super awesome. We're going to 50 kids next year.
That's amazing.
Which is super
Because
cool.
how many are in it right now?
I think there's about 30. The limit is 25, and they somehow were able to up the limit to 30 this year just so we could help some more kids, because I think it's definitely becoming more known, and it used to have a really bad rep. It used to be like people would think it'd be for like dropouts, pregnancies, druggies, like all of that kind of stuff.
Delinquents.
Delinquents. And I think now it's getting a lot better rep of just kids who don't learn like other kids. They just need some more space and time.
Because from my standpoint, like I went to that cookie cutter. My college and career readiness was learning off slideshows, but I didn't even learn how to do taxes or any of these necessary adulting. You don't, and that's what gets on my nerves. I've always kind of been rebellious of our school systems. In America, and like why? Because that was my big question the entire time I was in school.
I mean, half the things you learn you don't remember nor need to know.
Exactly. Unless you know exactly, I want to be a doctor. I want to work on planes, which my sister is now an engineer. I mean, she's in college right now for aerospace engineering.
That's amazing.
Because our brains are so different. She excelled where I hinder. So I think watching my sister like do all these things and accomplish so much in school was like, and then I got to high school, the same high school that she went to, and I was like, this is totally different for me. And I think maybe I had set my expectations too high, or maybe I set them too high for myself to be close enough to my sister to feel positive about myself.
Well, and I feel like that's something we should learn younger, is like who we are and what we need as a person.
There's no room
and there's
for
no
that.
room for it. They just put you in a classroom and they're like, this is what you're gonna do, and you're gonna be like everyone else, and you're gonna do what everyone else does, and
I don't want
you have to do it. No,
I was saying that even before I left Whitefish. I was like, this is crazy. And then you talk to my great grandpa, who just passed away. He was in his 90s. And to think about, he always told me these stories about when he not only worked off the coast after he graduated. I mean, he was in the military. He did all these amazing things. High school was the same, yet totally different.
Very different, yeah.
In terms of curriculum, everything was the same.
Yeah.
But then you come around to, we're in such a different day and age right now. It's not the same.
No.
We especially with where the world is at right now, and America, and it's hard growing up right now because we've all grown up too fast is the other thing. My question is, like, I feel like in high school, I was always doing like little surveys and things. Why aren't we allowed to fill something out for teachers to come back and look on? I know that teachers have one of the most important jobs in the world, but they're also being dumbed down by not being able to preach exactly. I don't know. They're also like robots. I feel like they can't be themselves.
No, and they have to like follow this like protocol of like, this is what you're gonna do, and you can't go outside of that.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you have a strike, or like and it's horrible. And like one thing that really confuses my brains is like book banning.
Yeah.
Like, there is this really big like, it is happening in Whitefish right now, where parents have to sign a permission slip in English class, which is a book, I can't remember what book it is, but it's a book that I think it's always been taught in the English curriculum, and now parents are like, I'm not allowing my student or my kid to read this book unless I know about it. Or
which is wild.
It's ridiculous, because I feel like those books that they make you read in English class, like a lot of it's real world. Like, it's very real.
That's why I think everything in life is a scam, and that this is all a simulation. But that's also a topic for a totally different time. It's like, once you start thinking about all of these they're all worldly issues, it all seems like a scam to me.
Yeah.
Truly, sometimes I sit back and I think about things. I'm like, how did we get here? How did this happen?
Seriously.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And for someone, I've been out of school for 2 years, and that's something that I have been feeling guilt about. But it's a part of that resentment and rebellion almost. Like, after I finished high school, I felt really terrible, and that's something that we'll touch on later when talking about depression and mental health and suicide. I felt, and I still sometimes feel that way, like I chose not to go to college right away. I know that it's something that I will do, but my goal is to be an entrepreneur and start my own business and not have to work for anyone again, because I don't like being told what to do. And that sounds really uppity of myself.
No, but
growing up, I felt that same pressure to fit into a mold and be this perfect shape, cookie cutter shape, that now one of the main things I want out of my life, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but one of the main things that I want is to be able to make decisions for myself. After the last 15 years of my life, I felt like I couldn't do that.
You were not able to do that.
Or be myself. In the place that I spent the most time.
And you're forced to be there.
Like,
you don't even have an option.
And I feel like there's a fine line between, like, everyone complains about school. And there's a fine line. Yes, it's all going to be a pain in the ass, but then there's a fine line between, yes, it sucks, but when are we going to change circumstances for kids? Because it's just going to keep changing. I mean, I've seen a change. I worked at a local coffee shop in Whitefish, and we had all these middle schoolers come in every single Wednesday when they got out early, and they'd all come hang out. And it was kind of weird. Like, they were almost acting like I was when I was a junior and senior in high school, which was really freaking me out. And that touches on social media, and that's also really scary, and a topic that I could talk about for hours.
Same,
I was reading an article about it the other day, and it touched on social media too, but in school, I mean, just like we were talking about that cookie cutter mold, we are kind of forced to learn what everyone else is doing instead of what we're doing, right?
It's like you're pushed into one big path that everyone has to take instead of taking your own.
The same article is like, when you're asked what you want to do when you're a kid, when you're 5, it's, I want to be an astronaut and I want to do all these big, beautiful things. And then as you get older, it's like, I want to be a marine biologist and help save the ocean. And then you get to high school and you're expected to know. Mm-hmm. And you say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then in terms of, I guess, all of the book banning and kind of parents trying to make decisions, I didn't see as much of that at Glacier, I feel like. And I didn't ask questions like I should have.
Yeah.
And the curriculum didn't include, and I knew that it didn't include all of the real world problems that we were facing. Mm-hmm. I think there was only one class that I took that was, and my teacher was awesome. It was government, my senior year, when, I don't know, we talked all about politics, and I've always been like I don't want to talk politics person, but we're in an age now where
kind of
that's it. Yeah. That's all we have. But I feel like most of my teachers in high school, they would try to push their views and I guess what they were taught at home onto these kids.
Yeah.
And that didn't make any sense. Like there's a couple times in which like male teachers would say something. Oh my gosh. Now I'm thinking about so many things that I want to talk about right now. Hold on.
Okay.
I need to recalibrate here.
Take your time.
Do you have any input?
Yeah, well, what's coming to mind about, like, book banning and just, like, sheltering, like, I feel like it's very much just, like, sheltering these kids from the real world, and, like, once they go to college, they're gonna see it all and be like, whoa, like, what is this? This is not what I thought this was gonna be. This is not what I've seen before. And I also feel like, to, like, kind of touch on, like, that book banning, like, I feel like it really goes hand in hand with, like, the LGBTQ plus community and just, like, trying to push that away from kids.
And that's where we come into the political propaganda almost of, like, there's 3 topics that people have been outraged about, and it's been for years. I mean, since COVID, when, everything everything Black Lives Matter was happening. So it's that. It's racism, sexism, it's mental health, which older generations, they were told to
buck it up,
and then that's what they expect now. But I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I am trying to confront childhood trauma now when I'm 20, instead of waiting until one of my parents is on their deathbed to try to figure out all of this stuff that I felt was effed up in my childhood. So racism, sexism, mental health, LGBTQ, it's all pushed aside, and then people are outraged on both sides of like, well, keep pushing this on the kids, like this is real world, and that's scary because they're going to learn about it eventually, depending on where they end up. But then that also comes back to like the second that you're born, you're being fed everything from everyone around you, which is tough because then you bring all that with you.
Yeah.
But the other side with book banning and what teachers can and cannot talk about, and it's getting to a point where teachers are going to be sued and fined and sent to prison, and then that brings up abortion rights.
Yeah.
And that is all stuff that makes me really anxious for growing up.
Yeah.
It's like, how am I supposed to live in this place when nobody can get along? I believe that we are just put on this earth to be a part of nature and to love, and we have grown up in a capitalist society where being yourself, whoever normal is to you, is not okay.
No, yeah.
And there's something in everyone that someone else doesn't like.
Which is, I feel like people don't need to like it.
Exactly. But we've gotten to a point where it's like we're criticized every day for not following the exact cookie cutter that some people do end up fitting into. They do end up following that. And that's all like, that's all big change stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I got to high school, my answer to what do you want to do when you grow up, like, I want to change the effing world.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel so small.
Yeah, so small. Well, and it's hard because you, like, tell people, you're like, I'm trying to do this, and they're like, you're not going to be able to do that. Like,
Yeah.
you're just this one person. No one's going to listen to you.
I want to be an artist. I've
Yeah.
been a visual artist my whole entire life. And so when I got to middle school and high school, people are like, what do you want to do? I want to be an artist. Well, you should probably figure something else out because you're not going to make enough money. There's so many hobbies that I can do. It'll take a long time. I could be a tattoo artist. I could make...
Yeah, you can make so much money.
You can make so much money.
Of course, it's
only
about the money.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's a whole different point, too.
It is,
because we need it. Yeah. When I was in 8th grade, I chopped all my hair off.
Me too.
Worst decision. It looked really good on you. But it did not look good on me. Mm-hmm. And so I was in 8th grade. I was already back in public school. And I was being bullied because everyone thought I was trying to transition into a male because I had cut my hair short. I was in my tomboy phase, so I was wearing big t-shirts. I looked like Adam Sandler.
It's not their place.
I was wearing basketball shorts to school.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, you're just being yourself.
I was just being myself.
Felt. Yeah.
And I was at that point in my life where I didn't really know what was going on. I needed a change. I chopped off my hair. I did regret it because I missed my hair. And I looked like my first ex-boyfriend, which we'll talk about him later. But one of my teachers, when it started to get really bad, like everybody was laughing and making fun of me, that was also one of the first times in 8th grade where I started feeling depression and anxiety, and I didn't know what to do with myself, as many 13-year-old, 14-year-olds do.
Well, like, in my case, like, being that young and having depression, you almost, like, tell yourself, like, no, I don't.
Oh,
like, it's not, like, I can't, I'm too young to have it.
You don't know what it is yet.
No. So then you're just, like, how can I have depression if
you don't know what it is?
If you don't know what it is, but, like, you know, but, like, you can't know because it's not acceptable. It's hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going back to your teacher.
I don't even remember exactly what he said, but he said something, essentially agreeing with all of the boys who were making fun of me. Said something along the lines of, well, if you're not transitioning, well, why is your hair that short? And it was very misogynistic. And that's where I'm going with this. It's like, and that's a whole another realm. But after he made his comment, I was in the dark and I felt so much more alone even than I did before, because I went to somebody for help, and he faced me with this very misogynistic comment, and I didn't really know what it meant at the time. I just remember being really sad. I don't know if he thought I was trying to transition too, or maybe I don't really remember it much either, so that's kind of the tough part about talking about it.
Yeah. It's just, like, the fact that, like, he said that, and...
Yeah. I was confused.
And you were young.
I was like, you're going to agree with all these 13-year-old boys? And when you're in middle school is some of the toughest times of your life. Middle school is worse than high school.
It's hard.
You're becoming a person, and then you're starting to try to fit into that mold, right, that everyone expects you to be in. But then you're getting yelled at for trying to be yourself in our education system. Yeah. Like, I felt that. That was over in Kalispell. I don't really remember much of Whitefish Middle School.
Whitefish Middle, it's just, like, at least for me, it was just, like, constantly. I felt like I was changing every year. I was a different person every year. And it was just, like no one, I was, like, a floater in friend groups, and, like, that was never a good thing, because, like, I mean, you couldn't keep friends, and, like, yeah, it's hard.
I don't think there's any piece of information or history or opinions that should be kept from children because their parents are afraid, or because because our education system is afraid, because our whole legislature, the Senate, everything big, bad, and scary about politics, it's because they're scared. Yeah. And people can't learn how to agree. And so to book ban, to keep information away from young children who are learning and developing, they don't understand the world yet. I don't think anybody ever really does. But
and I think
that's unfair.
It's very unfair. And I think you know, like, books are a really good way for kids to be able to develop their own mindset of what they think about the world, and, like, whether it's good or bad or whether you agree with it or not, like, that's how they develop that. And so how are they supposed to do that? And I know, like, the goal is for them not to do that. But, like, that's how it should, like, the way, like, democracy works. Like, everyone needs to have different opinions so we can all, like, find a middle ground so everyone can be somewhat happy and somewhat not happy. And we can't do that now because you can't speak your mind, or you can't read something, or
because it will regardless offend somebody, and therefore it offends everybody for whatever reason. And
I feel like, I mean, no one's ever gonna be happy. Like, not everyone is gonna be happy, not everyone's gonna be sad about it. Like,
you're gonna have your opinion,
and that's okay.
And people will either agree or disagree,
and it's okay to disagree with someone's opinion.
I was thinking about this earlier while I was driving here. Why does everyone have to have an opinion on your opinion?
Yeah. That is a really good question.
And that starts from when you're a wee tiny baby, and then you grow up in a capitalistic society, and it's like, do you like raspberries? Do you like blueberries? Who gives a fuck?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a berry. I had to make a berry reference. And where do you learn that? And it all stems from your childhood.
It does. And parents and teachers.
And that's not the parents' fault. People are going to be offended, right? But if you say parents, didn't let their kid, and it's not even let their kid, but kids from the second that they start learning are influenced by exactly what their parents or who their parents are. So I know tons of kids in Kalispell who have all of these opinions on LGBTQ and who is our president and all of these things, but they didn't do any of the research. They, and myself included in that, sometimes I take a stance and I'm like, why am I doing this? But it's about that mindfulness of, like, and I'm going to say this, I think with our public education system, we are actually all getting dumber. And that falls into mindfulness, that falls into spirituality. We're all dumbed down by our phones and our devices because we're being fed dopamine at every second of the day, which is, it's tough. And there's so nothing that we can do to change that. Like, individually we can, right? We set limits for ourselves. But I think in terms of critical thinking, not everybody has the mentality or the mindfulness to actually step back and say, why is this what I think? Why is this what I believe?
Or what am I doing? Like,
and what am I doing? Like, why is what this person is saying upsetting me?
Well, and I feel like it's also taught in, like you're not supposed to. Like, you're not supposed to step back and think about what you're doing or why you're doing it. Like, you are supposed to just follow. And you're just supposed to do it.
And in school, it's like, do you think this or this? And you have to give an answer. And if you don't give an answer, then it's like, well, why didn't you do anything? No,
it's hard because they don't want you to ask that, because then that brings up
ask questions.
No, because that brings up more questions, and that brings up more problems, and then it's like, well, why is this then? Or, and that is too much work for them, I guess.
This sucks because there is great schools, there is great teachers, but it all stems from public education. We're learning the same things that we have been for the last hundreds of years. And kids are finally starting to stick up and say, this is BS. And people get mad about that.
Very mad.
And I think there can be a lot of back and forth. And I think at the end of the day, my answer to that is, I don't know what we're going to do. Because if we keep staying on the track that we're going on, people and kids are going to be more unhappy growing up and spending the rest of their lives, even though there's so much good in the world. None of it makes sense when you're growing up.
You know,
for a number of reasons.
Sorry. I think about that a lot, and, like, the aspect of, like, what can we do? I mean, I'm only 17, you're only 20. Like, what can we do? But then I think about, like, we're not the only ones that feel this way. Like, our generation, the majority of them, I guarantee, feel the same way that we do.
Absolutely.
And that is going to be the generation that's going to be running everything at some point, which gives me some hope of, like, okay, if we feel this way, I know lots of other people feel this way, and lots of those people are probably going to be working in the school systems, and there might be principals or, you know, some sort of big community leader. And that somewhat gives me some hope of just like, we don't know what we're going to do, but I feel like a lot of our generation understands that something does need to change.
We have a lot of powerful minds.
We do.
What are we? Gen X? Gen Z?
Gen Z.
We're Gen Z. We're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We're psycho. But it's because we care so deeply, and there's a lot of things that we grew up into that we don't understand.
No.
And we're trying to figure it out, and we're trying to change that.
Yeah. And it's hard hearing from other generations of, like, just don't think about it. Look past it. It doesn't matter.
This does matter. This is directly affecting me in my life. That's something that I've been preaching to myself for the last year, is, like, literally nothing else matters aside from yourself.
Yeah.
And that comes into more of the mindfulness, mental health piece. But at the end of the day, you are the one living with yourself.
Yeah.
So starting from your early learning ages, why wouldn't you do everything that you can to make the best version of yourself? Which is also constricted in the education system because there's little to no effort, I feel like, from teachers and administration to talk about the big things.
Yeah.
Talk about how you feel.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's
ding, ding, ding.
huge.
And especially in boys.
I was just about to say that. Like it is. And I feel like a stigma, and I know it's around the entire world, but like stigma in Montana specifically is just like, buck up and do it. Like, you're a man, go out and shoot a gun. Like, like stuff like that.
It's
and
like
it's
you can't be an artist and create all of these really vulnerable pieces, and you can't ask questions, and you can't go to therapy, and you can't.
Oh, therapy. That one gets me. When people are like, you create therapies for crazy people, or guys can't go to therapy.
Needs therapy.
You don't even need to have a mental health problem or a mental health illness to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Just talk. You just talk.
Absolutely.
And I think
everyone has something to talk about.
And I think that's a really big stigma around men. And, you know, like, and it's not super personal to me, obviously, because I'm a girl. But, like, just listening it from other, like, my friends are just like, well, I want to go to therapy, but my dad won't let me.
Which is wild.
Crazy.
Still go.
Still go. Like, and it's, I mean, the cool thing is Whitefish School Systems does have, like, a thing on their page of, like, these are counselors we have in the town that are cheaper or, like, that can help you.
I need that list.
And that is super awesome that we have that. And that was created by SOC, the Student Outreach Committee that we created last year. So SOC, Student Outreach Committee, is essentially a group of kids that got together. And it actually started from Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls has a club or a committee very similar to the one we created, and we piggybacked off of them, and they came to us and they're like, hey, this is what we have. We would love for other schools to do something like this as well, just so we can, like, combat this mental health crisis we're having in the Valley specifically. And so a bunch of us got together and we went and talked to the principal, and we were like, hey, like, this is something that's really big. And there were a lot of red flags. He was like, well, first of all, the word mental health is not a good word in the school system.
Wild.
Because everyone has mental health.
What about public health?
Yeah.
Public health is fine to say out loud.
But mental health.
But why is it only mentally the most arguably one of the most important parts of your being? Why is that shunned?
Yeah. Because everyone has it.
Exactly.
Everyone has mental health. Like, it's like your health of your body. Like, you
That's
break
why
an
everyone
arm,
needs therapy.
Yeah. If you break an arm, you're gonna go to a doctor. If you go through something traumatic and, you know, like, the community around you is like, well, you can't go to therapy. Like, you're not going to go get help for that. But you can go get help for a broken arm.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to SOC. And so there's a backlash for sure of, like, well, if we use the word suicide, if we use, you know, mental illness, like, that's going to bring up a lot of things from parents. And, you know, we saw things happening at Sioux Falls where there was a lot of backlash at Sioux Falls, I heard, with, you know, like, they had seminars and stuff and people came and talked, and, you know, that wasn't okay. So we saw that backlash and we were like, okay, we don't want that, because we still want SOC to be seen as a good thing. So we should, you know, have a good image before we actually, like, dive into those deeper things. So we basically changed it to the Student Outreach Committee just to give kids, you know, a helping hand if they needed it, and just to be like, hey, we are a committee of people that if you ever need help, like, you can reach out to us. And obviously we can't be, like, you know, like, your person or, like, you know, your therapist, but, like, we can get you to the help you need, and we can, you know, talk you through the next steps to get help. And everyone in SOC all took a mental health like clinic kind of thing. So we were all, you know, aware of what we need to do in situations of if someone came and was like, I am suicidal right now, or I'm really struggling, what can I do? So we were able to be, you know, armed with those resources. And so basically it was just a committee for the students to go to if they didn't want to go talk to a teacher, or if they didn't know how to help themselves. And we did a lot of like, we even like put up, one of the kids in the committee put up sticky notes in the bathroom, and it was just like inspirational quotes. It was just like, you are beautiful.
Nobody knew I did it, but I did it.
Yeah. It was just all these like super inspirational quotes, and we got a lot of positive feedback of just like, you know, girls being like, this was really good to see today because I was struggling, and, you know, just seeing that and just reminding myself. So just little things like that we tried to do. And that was just kind of the start of it. I'm not in high school anymore, so I obviously don't have a lot of say in it, but the goal was originally to speak about mental health and to be more aware of it in the school systems, because it's not, you know, something you should be talking about, or you're told you can't talk about. So we just wanted to change that. So we kind of had to go to that through a different way of just like, we're here for the students. Now what can we do for the students in the topic of mental health?
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was super cool, and I think it's really powerful. Even the principal told us it was super powerful for like administration to see that the students were doing this and not the teachers, because they did have like a committee, but it was all teachers, and like their mental health committee thing was just teachers trying to do it. So I think what we tried to do was have it come from the students, so students would listen, because
young voices are, I mean, really, young people get along maybe better with young voices, and they'll be more willing to hear and learn. Listen, and then actually take that and use it, instead of, you know, your average 50-year-old male saying, do you need help?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really beautiful, and the Nate Shute Foundation here in Whitefish, I think, does a really good job at, you know, their community outreach, and I have done a little volunteer work with them, and I really love everyone who's on their board. I had been part of their From Surviving to Thriving little video series that they did on YouTube. And after that, I really just, I wished I had done more after that before I left high school. Because at Glacier, we had a string of suicides that all started with my counselor, or my class counselor, Mr. Avery, who died by suicide in November. It had to have been 2019, because that was right before COVID. And that shook the school. And I'm not sure why nothing happened immediately after that. It was completely silent in our halls for 2 weeks after his passing. It's like, you know what school halls sound like during a passing period. It's crazy, everyone's talking, music, etc., etc. No voices, no nothing in our halls right after he died, because he helped so many kids. Like, he helped save my life my freshman year when I was still navigating through my after short hair bullied phase of like, I didn't know, I felt awkward in my body and I didn't know what to do, and he helped me so much my freshman year of high school when I first got there. And then COVID, our shutdown happened in March, and a really close friend of mine passed away in May, and I put my hands up, and I couldn't really do anything. I got really depressed after that. But my point of that being, I had to drop all my classes. I pretty much emailed all my teachers after he died, and I said, I can't do this. And I am really grateful that they were all gracious and forgiving of that, because they knew how much I was hurting. And so, I mean, I still passed all my classes. I didn't finish the last month and a half, but I still passed. And there's a lot of grace because of they didn't know how to deal with suicide yet. They still don't. And it was still COVID, so they didn't really know what the rules were. And I think if roles were different, or if things were different and something else had happened and COVID wasn't going on, I wouldn't have got the same grace that I did.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. I mean, everything happens for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came back after my close friend died, there was even more suicides after that. And I have a whole list written down here. I was going to go through them, but I got back. It was for my senior year. We were back in person, and I had just finished this PSA video project with the Nate Shute Foundation. I was feeling really motivated to be a part of the change and to help. Mm-hmm. So I went to my principal at the time, and he was new. Like, I still don't even remember his name, which sounds horrible, just off the top of my head. But I went to him, and I wanted Alexa from Columbia Falls, and I knew that Whitefish was doing some outreach, and I was like, I have Nate Shute on board, and I have so many people that are willing to help and pitch in ideas for mental health. And I got told the same thing. So I met him in his office. It was kind of a lot of back and forth from there. I never really heard back from him at all. And then one day I got stopped in the hall during a passing period, and one of our administrators, who I really liked before he said this to me, he said, "We can't talk about mental health and suicide because it's triggering for kids." And to an extent, that's true. It's hard. It's really effing hard to talk about. But nothing is going to change unless we do. No. And we make not only our schools, but our entire community in Whitefish and in Kalispell, in the world, feel safe talking about your feelings, your problems, where you're at mentally. Yeah. So he stopped me in the hall and he said that to me, and there was no even effort to make a meeting with me to talk about it. So when he stopped me during a passing period, I put my hand in his face and I said, "If you want to talk about it, you can set up a meeting." Yeah. And I walked away after that.
Good.
And then he never set up a meeting, and I decided to graduate early. Yeah. And I still get down on myself because I wish I would have done more. And like nothing is stopping me now from going back to Glacier and trying again. Yeah. Even though I don't go there anymore. Like, it's important for schools in case the string happens again, or in case I know that everyone at one time or another has thought about dying. And my goal with reaching out to Glacier High again, and I maybe at the time I should have gotten more people on my side instead of just going there by myself. So I still feel kind of some guilt about that, because now it's been over 2.5 years since I graduated, and I feel like I gave up. And that's not who I am. I don't give up. Yeah. So I want to try again. And I just have to kind of start on that path. But
that's amazing. Everyone has to start somewhere, and it's scary, like that first initial, like, I want to do something, but like, what am I going to do, or how am I going to do this? Like, yeah. Like, it's scary, and and you know, like, you did it by yourself, so it's understanding that it was harder for them to listen to you and to listen to your voice, and it's really, I mean, it's discouraging.
After that, I got really mad. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to graduate early. Yeah. And then flash forward 4.5, 5 months to my graduation, in 2021. I got done with school in January, but didn't graduate till June. And I was shocked when I showed up at my graduation. And it wasn't just like, I was feeling a lot of things that day, but when I walked out, I had thrown my cap in the air. They hadn't saved a single seat for any of the people that we had lost, being our peers, people who should have been graduating with us that day. There was no words. There was no, I don't know. I left feeling even more glum than I did when I left school. It felt like nobody cared. Yeah. And I know that I lost a lot of friends, but I feel like there were people closer that felt this way more intensely than I was, and I knew how horrible everything affected me. Yeah. So it was this very contradictory, I was in my head, like, why am I this sad? People are telling me I shouldn't be this sad. I feel like people don't want me to be this sad. My graduation was very bittersweet, but not because, oh, I'm going to miss high school and I'm going to miss the people, but there are people that should be here that aren't. And they weren't talked about. And they weren't given enough. Mm-hmm. Anyway. And that's been a big thing. I started doing a lot of research on it a while back. I think it was kind of after I had graduated, and why do we think that is with men? It's because they're told to toughen up, and they're afraid to be emotional, which I think I'm a really emotional being. Like, I am super sensitive. Yeah. And that all comes with being a woman, but there's more to that too. Once you start exploring mindfulness, there's certain levels and things you can't just get rid of. Yeah, like accepting it. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, I made a lot of friends who were just totally the complete opposite of me, just kind of stone cold, and I had a really hard time with that a lot. And I think it took me a long time to see people that weren't seeing me instead of sticking up for people that wouldn't stick up for me. Yeah. But I noticed, I mean, a lot of the string of suicides after Mr. Avery, there were men. Like, one of them, the one that affected me the most was my ex-boyfriend, and we were together for 3 years, and 6 months after we split up, he died. And I had no idea what to do, because my intuition knew that it was going to happen. And then I played the game after he died of it was my fault because I didn't do enough. And I know now that that's not true, but him and his family are still so near and dear to my heart, and not a day goes by that I don't think about any of them. Yeah. And then another really close friend was only two months after that. Yeah, I think a lot of people were really shocked about a lot of the people who passed. Yeah, I think coming from an outside point of view, not personally knowing a lot of those kids, but just watching it happen was devastating for me. Like, it's really hard to watch. Yeah. And especially to know that, like, they're not the only ones. Like, there are so many kids out there that have felt that way. Yeah. I've felt that way. I know I've felt that you felt that way. Like, it's terrifying. But it took me literal years, and I'm still, like, I come on to a podcast and I'm afraid to say it. Yeah. Even though I want to scream it from rooftops. Like, everyone has been there, and it's scary. It's terrifying. Because then if you're telling people, like, yes, I have been suicidal at a number of points in my life, and as grateful I am as I am to still be here, it's scary to be vulnerable and then tell people that. Oh, it's very. And you never know the reaction that you're going to get. It's either, oh, I'm so sorry, or, well, why did you feel that way? Like, what did you do to feel that way? And there's a lot of uncertainty there, which is kind of tough. Like, there was... during my attempt, I kind of stepped back a few weeks later, and I was really down in the dumps, but a couple weeks later, I was already I felt myself crawling out of my body a little bit, and I didn't really have an answer for myself either. Yeah. Because I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to figure it out. Why I felt so bad in that moment that I would try to take my own life. Yeah. And I knew that there was like a whole mountain of things, of explanations and reasonings and things that were going on in my life for me to feel that way. But I had no one answer. Yeah. So even though I was trying to validate my own, it was just a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. For me, it was scary because I didn't necessarily want to die. They just felt like there's no escape. There's nowhere, nothing to do. Like, you just feel so stuck in that spot of like, I'm here, I can't get out of it, I've been here for months. And you feel small. And you feel very small. And you feel unimportant. And invisible, and that
like, you feel that way, but no one is seeing you. And so, you know, like, thought processes, this is the only way this is the only way I can get out of it. Feel free. And at some point, at least for me, you know, like, it was also, like, a cry for help of, like, people might see me, you know, like, people might realize that it's real and it happens, and, you know, I don't know. It's hard to say that because it feels kind of like...
Oh, I understand what you're saying,
like,
though.
a selfish way.
Yeah.
But, like...
There's a strong standpoint that people take when it comes to suicide. It's like some people, they hear suicide and they say that's selfish.
No.
But truly, like, when you think about it, my friend who was, I mean, I miss him every day. I don't even like to think about what was going through his head. No. Because there is no possible way that anyone, because, I mean, the other thing, if they are set in that mindset and if they want to leave, there's little to nothing that you can do to actually convince them.
They're going to do it.
And it's up to them, and it becomes a mental battle with them of what are they going to try to fight for if they can't fight for themselves. Is there something that they... that can pull them out, but that's nobody's fault, and it's nobody's responsibility to save someone from themselves. Which that sounds a lot worse coming out of my mouth than it did in my head.
No, but it's true.
There's
it's like people are gonna do what they want, and if they are really set in that,
you can try as much as you want to, and all of your coping mechanisms that maybe work for you, that's not gonna work for someone else.
No.
And
they have to find it themselves.
And if they're too deep in it and they can't pull it out, it's nobody's job but theirs to get them out of it. Yeah. And suicide is one of the least selfish things. Like, it's really fucked up and it's horrible when people leave entire lives behind. And that's what makes me sad. But if you think about what they were feeling in that moment.
It's the opposite of selfish.
Absolutely. They want to escape this life that they think is horrible. And I've been there, and I'm like I said, I'm extremely, extremely grateful to be sitting in this room with you right now. Because there was multiple times, like starting, I mean, even in 8th grade, where I didn't think I would make it here. Yeah. Oh, even this time last year, I didn't think I would make it again. And I'm still here. Yeah. And I think there's still a lot to say about that. There's still a lot in my head that I have to go over and I have to think about, because I still have a lot of learning and growing to do.
You're young. You got time.
And so are you.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that we're here to experience it.
Me too. Yes, me too.
Something that gives me hope is people like you, because they've gotten into, so myself included, have gotten into such low points in their life that when we come out of it, there's nothing that we want more to help other people.
Yeah, so they don't feel the same way.
Exactly. And there's nothing that we can keep people from feeling, but we can help them navigate it and create this open conversation, because once we start, it might ripple.
And it will take that stigma away of...
And that's the biggest thing, especially in the fishbowl that we live in. Like, nothing's going to change unless we start talking about it. And unless we get mad.
Yeah. And I think a really cool thing is, like, what gives me hope is you and our generation, genuinely. Like, I think we aren't scared to speak out.
No.
Like, I think older generations were just so put into this mindset of, you're going to work 9 to 5 job. You're going to go into the military. You're going to do this, and you have to. There's no other way to live a life. And I think our generation is really powerful in a way of where, like, actually, no. Like, I don't need to work a 9 to 5 job.
Makes me happy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do something that you're not happy with the rest of your life. Yeah. We're going to be here for a long time.
Yeah. And I think that's what gives me hope, is that there are people that, like, our generation understands that. And, you know, we are going to be the people that are running this country, or running this world. And I think a lot of powerful things can come from that. And, you know, people like you and I that can understand, you know, the emotional aspect of all of it. And I think Gen Z can really, like, put it into, like...
We're going to rock the world, man.
Yeah, we are.
That's awesome.
I think our generation also has a lot more empathy and understanding for humans.
Absolutely.
Which is a very powerful thing that can, like, go a long ways.
And hopefully the stigma of you have to choose this or that, and if someone doesn't agree with you, then F them, you know? I hope and pray that that goes away. Because, like I said, we... exactly. We were put on this planet to be a part of nature, to be ourselves, and that's it. I don't know if there's any other reason to exist other than to just be, instead of following all these constructs and things that are important. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of important stuff in the world, and we've come a long way.
But piggybacking off of that, like, nature thing, I think about this a lot, actually, but, like, the fact that, like, animals are very in tune with nature and themselves. Like, you know, you hear, like, oh, like, animals in Yellowstone can, like they do weird things before there's an earthquake. Like, they can feel that, and they know that something's gonna happen. Or, like, you know, like, they're watching animals. If something goes wrong, like the super volcano, like, they're watching those animals to see, like, oh, if these animals are acting this way, maybe the super volcano is gonna go off someday. Like, you know, and I feel like humans, at some point, had to have had that intuition of, like, being connected with, like, nature and the earth and each other. I think each other's a really big thing, and we've lost that through, like, evolution. And
we are the species that can communicate with words, and somehow we lost the ability to connect.
Keep evolving into, like, something where we can't stop it, obviously, but, like, I think with that we've lost ourselves and who we are and what we are supposed to be doing on this earth. And I think part of that is definitely mental health and just being empathetic towards each other and understanding. And even if you don't understand, just being like, okay, I hear you.
Just being able to open your ears and listen.
Yeah, just listen.
You don't have to give feedback. Not everyone's going to be able to help you, but to have someone that can sit and listen.
And not judge.
And not say anything. But also to have people... This is another really important thing that I was wanting to talk about today, is, like, I've learned and still learning now more than ever to surround yourself with good people and good intention is one of the things that's going to help you in your life the most. Because once you take away all of the people who have been weighing you down or not impacting you energetically in a way that's giving you anything, the second that you realize that and take those maybe things or people or anything horrible, bad habits out of your life, the better it's going to become.
Oh, yeah.
And saying no is hard. And leaving people is hard. And things. It's all hard.
It is really hard.
But life is beautiful.
And everything's going to be hard.
And everything's going to be okay.
It is going to be okay, but it's also, like, it's not just going to be easy. Like, life is not easy at all. And especially, like, I don't know. And I feel like as someone that is really wanting to advocate towards youth mental health, like, that's a big thing in high school. Is just being like, okay, I'm not in the popular group. Who cares? Like, it's, first of all, not going to matter. Like, I graduated high school less than a month ago. And at this point, I'm like, why did I care?
There's so many, and that's one of the things I love. I after high school, I just started working. And there are so many more people in the world than who you went to high school with, and the energy that you were surrounded with for the last 15 years in school. The world is totally different. And that's why I love working so much, is, like, that's why I liked work more than school. I started working when I was 14.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to be around people who I wasn't around every day. I wanted to learn. I wanted to have the real world experience, even if it's just here in Whitefish, Montana at a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. It is hard saying that, like, being like, oh, like, out of high school, it's the real world, while we're still, like, me personally, I just graduated, so I haven't left yet, and just wanting to, like, experience that and feeling like I am experiencing it, even though I know I'm not. Like, that's
another thing that I wanting to talk about today, this the fishbowl and leaving but coming back, because I had this conversation yesterday with one of our customers. They're like, oh, you're from here? Like, yeah. they're like, okay, you were born and raised here. And I was like, it's really beautiful, it's amazing. And they're from, I think they were from Texas, and they were all shocked. They were like, it's so beautiful here, like I really want to move here. And I was like, everyone wants to move here, don't worry. But they were like, so you're just gonna stay here the rest of your life? And I was like, no. Yeah. And they were like, well, why not? It's so beautiful, like you're so lucky to have grown up here. And I said, absolutely, and I can appreciate that. I'll be back. Yeah. But there's also so much of the world to see. And it's beautiful. There's like the community in Whitefish in the Flathead Valley. It's small. There's a lot of gifts and treasures in it, but it is so different culturally than it is. I mean, you can go other places in America and it's different, but not to mention the world. Yeah. It's like I wanted to travel so bad, and I still do, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get to Europe and live there for 6 months without breaking my bank account. You know? Hard. It's hard. And that's why I'm afraid to leave. I'm not afraid to leave. I know I want to leave. I'm not in a rush right now. At first, when I got done with high school, I was like, get me the heck out.
Oh, I'm in that stage. I'm ready to move.
and like, it's scary, and I never did it, and now I'm to a point where, like, yeah, I want to go, but I am not as rushed as I was when I first got out of high school. There's so much that I want to see and do and experience that I didn't get to here.
Yeah. Oh, no, you don't. This is something so, you know, my mom does this thing, graduation trips. I just graduated, so she takes this on anywhere we're going to go in the world. And I chose Norway. I'm in love with Norway, always have been. And the difference, because I've only ever experienced Whitefish, really. Like, I've never really looked at the aspect of, like, culture here versus, you know, Norway or any European country, because they're all very similar in that way of, like, how you treat people. Like, here, I was talking about it with one of my friends who moved to college in Washington, and, you know, she was talking about how she felt like here she wasn't able to help herself. Like, she constantly just had to be there for other people.
Exactly.
Like, you have to do this for people. Like, you can't think about yourself. Like, and, you know, like, I went to Europe, and, like, there, people don't really say hi to you on the streets. Like, you're not obligated to be like, hey, what's up, even though you don't know them. Or, like, people aren't going to constantly be smiling at you there. And, like, personally, I like that, because I feel like, you know, here we're just trying to make everyone happy, and you don't have time to focus on yourself here. And a lot of, like, Norway is, I'm pretty sure, in the top 10 happiest countries. Yeah. Like, their people. And Finland.
I moved to Finland.
And, like, like, just the way that everyone interacts with, like, they're all still very nice, but they're not gonna, like, smile at you, or they stare at you because they're curious about you. And, like,
I was thinking about that the other day. We give so much energy every single day
to everyone, even though you don't know them.
Yeah.
And
which is fine. Like, it's just the culture that we grew up in.
But if you don't, then you're a bitch. like, then you're a really bad person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just, I don't know. Like, it just is very,
I've had a similar experience. I was only in New York, though, and it was strange. Like, I was walking around New York by myself. Nobody wanted to look at me. Like, I was kind of just, like, checking everyone out. Because I was like, this is fucking cool. This is so different from home. Like, that's where I gravitate to right now, is a big city, somewhere with not more land, because, man, Montana is a lot of land, but just, I guess, bigger.
Yeah,
like, New York was, like, so exhilarating for me. It was just New York. But it was incredible, because I went from small town Whitefish, where I've lived my whole life, and I'm like, I don't want to get on my plane to come home. The drastic difference was so comforting to me. Yeah. It's like, I've always known that I'm so tiny in this world, and like this big, that doesn't exclude me or my life at all. I'm still just as important as everyone else on the earth. But I felt good in New York. I felt small. But everyone was just doing themselves. Like, there was no obligation for anything. Yeah. Everyone was just going about their day. Yeah. And it was interesting to see, and I really liked that. That's why I like New York a lot.
I agree. Yeah. It's also like I feel like I experienced that when I went to New York too. Like, you'd like smile at someone, or like say like, oh, thank you so much, like in a really nice way, and they're like, you're welcome. Like, they're like, why are you being so nice right now? Yeah. And it's just like interesting to me to think that, like, that's how we But we were, like, forced into that, you know, like, we have to be nice here. Like, not nice. Obviously, you want to be nice to everyone because you don't know their story or who they are.
So much extra energy onto little things
that don't mean anything. Yeah.
I get it. When I was growing up, I mean, it was still like that. But I think the more that we grew as a tourist city, the worse that it got.
Well, and I think a lot of it coming from restaurant, like working in the industry, like
we both
service
worked in the
industry.
Restaurant industry this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, ever since I turned 14.
Yeah.
I feel like part of me, like, doing that is so I can make more money. I'm just trying to get tips.
Yeah.
So, like, I have to be, even though they're so mean, they do not see us as, like, people. No. And they think because we work at restaurant jobs that, like, we don't respect her or, like, whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm just trying to make money.
It's just, that's it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. I had this really mean lady come in. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to be so nice to her. And this was kind of a breakthrough I had, like, 2 weeks ago. And one of my coworkers, she comes into work. She's honestly lovely. Like, she really scared me when I first started working there. But she's just so, I mean, she's straightforward. She doesn't want to worry about all this extra banter, side talk, all of this, oh my gosh, I love you, how's it going? Like, I know that she cares about me. She still asks me how I'm doing. But she's never exerting so much energy that she's so tired when she's done with work. Yeah. She can be tired physically from walking around the whole time.
Sounds great.
I know. Like, even me as like, when I host over at the restaurant, it's like, I go home and I'm exhausted. Yeah. And that's on me, too, because I know that I can make the change. But it's weird for me because that's how I've been the whole time I've worked in customer service.
And I also just, like, if I feel like I'm going to perceive, if I'm not as, like, nice or outgoing or, like, putting all of this energy into it, then, like, I'm bad. I'm not doing a good job. I'm a bad person. I maybe someone was having a bad day and I made their day worse by not being super out there. I don't know.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like, it's interesting. And it's kind of helped recently. Like, I started working at the gym here, so, like, I don't have to be nice. I feel like we can be like, well, we don't really need your money because I'm not getting tips from you. Yeah. And I feel like that's, like, kind of shown me in the rest, like, also working at a restaurant, like, the customer is actually not always right.
No, absolutely not.
And that's okay to be like, actually get it. Like, I don't need your money, you know? Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting.
You remind me a lot of your sister. It's crazy.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
I know you do. Yeah. But you're your own person. I just mean, like, your smile and kind of, you guys have some of the same expressions. Yeah. And
I heard we have the same voice, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that right now? Just the Montana legislature when they cut it was back in 2017, but we're kind of just now coming back from it, and I haven't done all the research that I could before coming in today. But in 2017, the Montana legislature cut $200 million from public health funding, and that, I mean, that was a big deal. It was before COVID.
So I did some research today when you brought it up, and I read this lady, one of her clients, she worked in community-based care, and she said that, like, instantly when one of her clients found out that the budget cuts were made and that he might not be able to go in anymore and get the help he needed, she was like, he got very suicidal and very scared for his life because that's all he had. That's the only thing that he could get, and he didn't have that anymore. Which is crazy to think that, like, also, I was 12 at that age, and, like, I just think about, like, I didn't know that stuff was real.
We know so much more now.
And, like, I never thought about, like, there are other people out there that are struggling with this, and, like, you know, I just feel like I was so oblivious to, like, all of those things. And
I think there was just a grant, and I could totally be wrong. I don't want to try to say any facts that aren't legit, but we got a large chunk out of that money back. I think it was like $300 million.
I believe we did.
That was directed towards public health again. And then the whole process with that, they want to be more long-term effect rather than, okay, let's give all this stuff back right now. They want to implement change. I don't know how that's going to happen yet.
And that was recently. That was like in April or something. Yeah. It's very recent. And
I think it was like the second week in April or something like that. But that, I mean, that was kind of the silver lining to what happened in 2017 when the budget cut happened. Is like, it brought forth so much about mental and substance use. Like, everything was on, like, the front of the stage.
Yeah.
And nothing, I mean, nobody can really hide anything after that. Which, I mean, was good. No. I feel like it opened more people's eyes, though.
For sure. Yeah.
That's my point with that. It's like, it would have been great if that didn't happen in the first place, but now we're all to a point where we all see it. And
I read something today that made me really happy, that it said that both sides wanted the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was like, I was like, oh, that's amazing. That, like, whether what you believe in or not, like, mental health is still a thing, and everyone has it, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, like, it's still there.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome that this is honestly, like, the first thing I've seen in years that both sides have agreed on something.
Yeah, it's crazy when people agree.
Yeah, it's insane. I was like, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this happen like, once I started, like, actually paying attention to politics.
That's kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
That's okay. I didn't until recently either.
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of very sound. Sometimes we can make irrational decisions, but that's about little things. But I feel like in the realm, when we're talking about America, when we're talking about the world, like Gracie was saying a little earlier, we all have a very common stance on what's happening in the world. And a lot of us want to see change in terms of mental health, public health. I mean, all of these things that are happening. And I think if there were more people that were willing to talk about, I mean, our first step is even talking about mental health. And then politics right now, people are almost too forward and open to talking about. But like we were just talking about earlier, nobody actually knows what they're talking about.
No. I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about half the time.
I don't either. And, like, that's where I stray, and I don't particularly like talking about politics, but I in a sense, kind of know where I stand.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've never been really, like, bashful or harmful when talking about politics, but I know a shit ton of people who are. And I don't like having conversations with those people. It's because anything I say, whether I have facts to back myself up or not, whether I've done the research or not, all they're going to do is get mad and say, well, blah, 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 about XYZ, you know?
They won't listen.
No.
And it's hard, like, you can't do anything about it. You're just, like, you have to step back. You're like, all right, that's how you feel?
And then they attack your person after that.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah. No, I definitely think, I mean, politics is our world. Like, that's what we live in. We live in politics.
A democracy.
A democracy, yes. And so obviously we need, like, our generation is going to be the old people at some point, so we need our generation to be in it.
And why not start that earlier?
Yeah. And I always hear people saying, like, it's a waiting game. Just wait for them to die off so then you can be in it.
But no. We can't wait, because they're just going to do a whole bunch more fucked up shit before we get there. And then we're going to have to fix all this shit. You know what I mean?
And some of it is you can't fix it. No. You can't fix and bring back all of those people that didn't have the help they needed at the time. Like, there's a lot of it. You can't, like, climate crisis. You can't bring that back once it's too far. And it is, I think, at the point where it's a little too far.
We can't go back.
No.
Which is also stressful.
Oh, and that plays a big part. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That goes into a whole new topic. Yeah.
This is the beginning of the revolution.
There is going to be a revolution.
I will say.
I also think, like, I've thought about this, like Bernie Sanders or Trump being president. I don't care who they are, whether their politics or what they believe in, whatever. Their age, like, blows my mind. Because I feel like at some point, like, they're trying to grasp onto this so hard so it doesn't change because they know it's coming.
And old morals and old grounding, like...
It scares them.
I was talking to my mom about this the other day. Like, if they want us to have a brighter future or try to make America great again, where are your morals? That's all I care about. I don't give two craps about if you're a man or a woman or if you, I don't know, everyone's going to believe what they want to believe. I don't even like saying right wing, left wing, just because that's categorizing people. And I think it's funny during elections when they're like, here's this vast group of people. They all suck, but choose your favorite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they're going to run the country for the next 4 years. Maybe 8. But they give you a selection that is like bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Many people who don't have morals or like keep making these promises that they
Mm-hmm.
can't keep, or just ends up being really shitty after they make their presidency.
Yeah.
Anyway, morals are really important, people.
Very important.
Like, one of my strongest, just treat people. My grandma used to say it all the time. Treat people how you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My mom still says that to me sometimes.
Well, my mom says that to me all the time.
When I'm getting mad at something,
Mm-hmm.
some people, like, sometimes I really just want to punch someone in the face. My mom's like, treat other people how you want to be treated.
Yeah. And half the time, it's not worth your energy.
No.
Like, it's really, you just have to be like, all right.
And I think that's what's good about our generation is, like, we're growing up seeing everything that's happening
Mm-hmm.
around us that we've had no control over since we're so young.
Yeah.
And we want to make a change, and we know that to make a change, there's going to be disagreement and annoyance, and...
Which is good. You need that to make change.
Exactly. Anyway, so I'm excited for the future. It scares me, but I'm excited.
I'm terrified, but
Yeah.
I have hope. I really do.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm just waiting. I feel like older generations are too scared to let go, so they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to grasp on as hard as they can until they can't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's getting to that point where they are slowly being forced to let go
Mm-hmm.
with, suing Montana.
Yeah.
That was the younger generation, and
Yeah.
they did it. And that is just the start of...
They used their voice and they took a stance, which...
does a lot.
It does a lot. When I did my PSA project with the Nate shoot, that was kind of my stressor. I feel like there was a lot more that I wanted to say in that, but I
Mhm.
was I was scared, I was nervous. But we can't be there for other people, unless we're there for ourselves, for one. It all starts from, coming back to mindfulness and staying inside your body, but once you're comfortable here, which there's a lot of hurdles that can stump you on that way.
Yeah.
That's one of the only things that it takes to help other people, is if you
Yeah.
are strong and secure in yourself and willing to listen and talk with people, even if it's scary. Like, I know that we all feel these things, and when I was in some of my darkest spirals, I felt alone, and I know that I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was just afraid to talk about it. And so I think that's one of the biggest steps that we can make right now in our day-to-day is
Talking about it.
Talking about it.
And being okay with,
It's
not being uncomfortable about it.
Exactly. It's not triggering.
No.
It's scary.
It's real, though.
It's real.
And I think, like you said, like, a big part of mental health, with, like, Nate, like, just being alone. But I also think a really big thing about it is not having that stigma of, like, you're crazy if you are depressed.
Yeah.
Or you're crazy if you go to therapy. Like, I feel like for the longest time, like, in school, people knew I was struggling.
Yeah.
And there are some people that were like, I had no idea, but I know there's people that knew. And they were so uncomfortable talking about it. And I feel like if there was just that stigma lifted, and it has to start really with young kids, being like, it's okay to have these emotions. It's okay to feel alone. Like, just being able to talk about it, I think would make such a big difference in just being okay and understanding that everyone has the same feelings and emotions.
And at some point or another, someone has felt similarly to how you feel.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation, like, those emotions and feelings come up. That's why we have emotions and feelings, is to A, feel them, and B, figure out what to do with them.
Yeah.
Instead of lashing out or getting to the point of being suicidal. Like, being able to talk about those things that are hurting us is incredible, and I think it can make the most of the difference.
Oh, yeah.
And then just, like, creating that safe space is what is really important. Like, for me right now is, like, I know a lot of people, but I have yet to get everyone in a room together and say, like, how can we help?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah.
What is going to be a good way to make this a safe place and get the word out there?
Yeah.
But then even in your day-to-day, like, the people that you care about, check in on them. Like, if you haven't seen someone since high school and you're thinking about them, check in on them.
Yeah.
Like, I was always someone in high school. I had a very small group of friends, but I was acquaintances with everyone.
Yeah.
There's people I think about all the time that I want to check in on. And I think if we make it a habit to check in on those that we love even more, whether they're our age or older than us or younger than us, I think it's really important.
For the longest time, obviously, like I said, in 8th grade, I felt like I knew I was depressed, but I was like, I can't have these feelings. Like, I'm so young, you know. I know, like, I had a lot of traumatic experiences as a child, but I always felt like, oh, but I have a house over my head, and I am very privileged to live in America where I have freedom. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way, you know. And then when I finally reached out and got my diagnoses of, like, what's going on, I feel like that was such a big step in, like, okay, my mom helped me. Like, I was able to reach out to her, and she helped me get to the doctor. And now I know what's not wrong with me, but I know what's going on in my brain, and I know, like...
You know better how to cope and operate.
Yes, and I know how to help myself, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just, like, once you do reach out, like, it's not just other people, like, talking, it's also... That's when you're able to understand why you feel that way.
And you're able to implement into your life afterwards. Because talking is easy. Anyone can talk. And that's the first step. But after that is implementing coping mechanisms. Remembering to breathe when you're anxious. Like, I wrote this a couple weeks ago. And then there's been something in the air recently, I feel like. I started with Dear Morgan. That's me. You have trouble seeing your own worth. Even though you have so much to offer, you're always focused on the things that you've done wrong, the mistakes you've made, and the way you and the ways you could have done better. Since you're so focused on your flaws, you assume everyone else is too, and you assume they see you in the same way that you see yourself. But you need to start looking at yourself the way you see others. You would never focus on your friends' faults and failures because you know that they are more than their worst moments. Give yourself the same grace and extend kindness to yourself because you deserve to feel lovable. And where I was going with that of like, I don't really remember what I was feeling that day, but I felt I was really in my no one can ever love me, I'm so blah. I don't even know. Anyway, but it all starts within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's when we can give back and help other people the most is remembering that we're people too. And as much as we help other people, we can be here for ourselves too. And so always remember that. You always put yourself first.
Always put yourself first. You can't help other people if you can't help yourself.
That's what I said. I've said that. Did you get to watch my PSA project with the Nate shoot? That's what my closing line was.
Really? Yeah.
Anywho, it's true.
It is very true, and I feel like I always like tried to be there for my friends, and I was struggling being there for them, and I was like, why can't I do it? And I always just realized I wasn't there for myself, nor did I give myself grace to be a human, to make mistakes. Yeah, that was beautiful though.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
I really loved sitting down and talking to you after probably 3 years. I have not seen you.
It's been a very long time. This is amazing. Very grateful for this opportunity.
And we're grateful for Morgan, who's camping.
Yes, thank you, Morgan.